Hello, and welcome back to Speak English Daily.
Hi everyone, we are very happy to see you here today.
Hello, everyone. If this is your first time with us, we're really glad you're here. And if you've been listening for a while, welcome back. Before we start, take a second to subscribe to the channel and like this episode because it really helps us reach more English learners who need calm, real conversations like this.
Yes, thank you for being here with us today. We know your time matters, and we appreciate that you chose to spend a part of your day listening and practicing English with us.
Today we're talking about a topic that comes up all the time in small talk and casual conversations: what you do in your free time. You hear it in classrooms, on dates, at work, at family dinners, basically everywhere. People love to ask about hobbies, weekend plans, or favorite activities because it helps them get to know you in a friendly and simple way.
And here's the thing, students often tell us they freeze when someone asks, "So, what do you do in your free time?" They understand the question, but the answer feels too big. They don't know if they should give one word, a full explanation, or a story, and then they panic a little.
Exactly. And we get why. Talking about your free time is personal. It tells people what you enjoy, what makes you happy, and how you relax. But don't worry, we'll make it simple, slow, and real today.
Let's start with the simplest way to answer that question. You can begin with a short phrase like, "I like to," "I love," "I enjoy," or "in my free time, I..." These sentence starters are clear, friendly, and easy for beginners to remember. No need to get fancy or complicated.
For example, I can say, "In my free time, I read books," or "I like to go hiking," or "I enjoy spending time with my family." These are simple sentences, but they tell the listeners something real about you.
And here's a little secret. You don't always need to impress people. You don't need to say you climb mountains every weekend or play the violin for 6 hours. Normal, simple hobbies are fine. Saying, "I watch movies," or "I play games," or "I cook on weekends" is a perfectly good answer.
Speaking of real life, let's share a bit about us. When I have free time, I like to cook with my sister. We try new recipes, and sometimes we fail completely. Once we tried to make homemade pasta, and it turned into a sticky disaster. The kitchen looked like a flour explosion, but we laughed so much that it became one of my favorite memories.
I love that story. For me, free time usually means going out for a walk or sitting at a cafe with a cup of coffee. Nothing dramatic, just walking, thinking, and enjoying the quiet. And sometimes people look at me like I'm doing something mysterious, but really, I'm just sitting there with coffee thinking about whether I should buy a new pair of shoes or not.
But that's the point. Free time doesn't need to be exciting for it to matter. It's about what makes you feel good. When you can talk about your free time in English, you're not just practicing vocabulary, you're sharing a little piece of your life.
And today we'll give you useful phrases, lots of natural examples, and 3 longer conversations so you can hear how real people talk about this topic. By the end, you'll be able to describe your own free time in a way that feels honest and natural.
So, Mike, I'm curious, what do you usually do after work when you finally have a little free time? Do you crash on the sofa and disappear into the universe of television, or do you do something more productive?
I used to crash on the sofa, to be honest. There was a period when my routine was basically key in the door, shoes off, couch, remote, and then 2 hours of watching whatever show was trending. It felt good at the time, but after a while, I noticed that I didn't feel relaxed, just tired in a different way.
I know that feeling. It's funny how rest and escape are not always the same thing. What do you do now instead?
Now, I usually go for a short walk in the evening. Nothing heroic, just around the block or to a nearby park. It helps my brain switch off from work. Then when I come home, I feel like I actually have free time instead of just lying down like a potato.
That makes sense. Sometimes something small changes the mood of the whole day. For me, if I open a book for even 15 minutes after dinner, I feel like the day had some flavor. If I don't, the day feels like all work and no life.
What have you been reading lately?
A novel about a girl who moves to a big city and has no idea what she's doing. She gets lost constantly and keeps making little mistakes. She goes to the wrong office building, takes the wrong bus, orders food she doesn't understand, but she keeps trying and slowly gets better. I guess I relate to that feeling of trying to build a life while also learning how everything works.
That actually sounds comforting. Stories where the characters are trying their best feel good, even when they're awkward.
They do. And here's something important for our listeners. Notice how we're talking about our free time right now. We're not giving one-word answers like reading or walking. We're adding small details. Beginners can do that too. You can say, I like to read, and then add a small detail like, I read in the evening, or I read stories about travel.
You can even add a reason. For example, I like to go for a walk because it helps me relax. Or I like to cook because it makes me feel creative. You don't need long grammar explanations, just little pieces that make the language feel alive.
And when you talk to other people about their free time, asking simple follow-up questions keeps the conversation going. You can ask, what do you usually do after work? Or do you do that alone or with someone? Or when do you have time for that?
Let's model that quickly. Ask me something.
All right. Do you drink coffee in your free time or are you a tea person?
Coffee, always coffee. I tried switching to tea last year and I lasted 3 days. Tea is nice, but coffee feels like a warm handshake from life. How about you?
I'm both. Coffee in the morning to wake up, tea at night to calm down so my brain doesn't decide to write a book at 2 a.m.
That's actually a good point for beginners. Free time doesn't always mean hobbies. Sometimes it's simple daily rituals that make you feel like a human being and not a robot.
Yes, thank you for saying that. People often feel pressure to say big hobbies like surfing or dancing or painting, but free time can also be small things like listening to music, sitting with your cat, messaging friends, or doing nothing and enjoying the silence.
I love that. Doing nothing is underrated. There should be a class in school called How to Do Nothing Without Feeling Guilty. I would have taken that twice.
Me too. And that's already enough material for a small talk conversation in English. Ask, answer, add a detail, and ask one follow-up question. It builds connection without needing advanced grammar. Let's slow down for a moment and give our listeners some tools. When people talk about free time, there are a few simple patterns that make life easier. They're friendly, easy to pronounce, and easy to customize. The first one is I like to. For example, I like to read in the evening, or I like to play video games. It's simple but complete.
Another one is I enjoy. For example, I enjoy cooking with my family, or I enjoy swimming in the summer. Enjoy is useful because it sounds a little warmer. You're not just describing what you do, you're sharing something that makes you feel good.
There's also in my free time, you can say in my free time, I watch movies, or in my free time, I go to the gym. And if you want to talk about weekends, you can say on weekends, for example, on weekends, I visit my grandparents, or on weekends, I bake cookies with my younger sister.
Notice something important here. We're not talking about grammar rules, we're talking about patterns. Beginners often feel stressed because they think they must memorize long grammar explanations before they can express themselves. But learning a pattern like in my free time, is much easier because it's something you can use today.
Right, and here's a little trick to make your answers sound more natural. After you say what you do, add a tiny detail. For example, instead of saying, I watch movies, you can say, I watch movies at night, or I watch movies with my best friend, or I watch movies when I'm tired.
That little detail makes your English feel warm and personal. You can also add frequency, which means how often you do something. There are simple frequency words that beginners can use right away, like always, sometimes, usually, often, or never. For example, I usually play football on Sundays, or I sometimes go to the park after dinner.
Let's show how these small pieces work together. I'll give a personal example. On weekends, I visit my parents, we drink tea together and talk about our week. I usually stay there for 3 or 4 hours and then go home feeling very relaxed.
That's a really nice ritual. For me, it's more chaotic. On weekends, I sometimes play basketball with friends. I am not great at it, but it makes me laugh and it makes me sweat, and both are needed in life. After the game, we often buy ice cream, even if it's cold outside. I don't know why we do that, but it became part of the tradition.
That's fantastic, because this is how language becomes interesting. The listener gets a picture, not just information. If you're learning English and someone asks you, what do you do in your free time? You can give them something they can visualize. Even a small image makes the conversation feel human.
And here's another idea to help learners. If you don't know a specific hobby word, don't give up. Describe it simply. For example, let's say you don't know the word gardening. You can say, I take care of plants in my yard, or I grow vegetables behind my house. That still communicates the idea very clearly.
Yes, English is surprisingly flexible. You don't need perfect vocabulary to talk about your life. You just need phrases to open the door.
Something else that beginners struggle with is feeling like they need to give a perfect answer. But real conversations don't reward perfection. They reward connection. And connection often comes from small stories or emotions attached to your free time.
Speaking of that, when I was younger, my free time was almost all music. I played the piano every afternoon after school. Sometimes I practiced carefully, but sometimes I played loudly and dramatically as if I were performing for 5,000 people in a concert hall. My mother would walk by and say, Anna, please, I love you, but we have neighbors. And I would laugh and play even louder.
That's so relatable. When I was a teenager, my free time was video games, hours and hours after school. My parents would knock on the door and say, dinner is ready, and I would shout, wait, 1 more minute, which was a lie. It was never 1 minute. It was always 25. But those memories are still warm. That's what free time gives us. It builds stories.
And that's why it's such a great topic for English learners. You're not just learning phrases, you're learning how to talk about what gives your life color. Once you understand that, speaking becomes less mechanical and more alive. Let's jump into a more natural conversation about free time. Imagine 2 friends meeting after a long week. Nothing formal, just real life. So Mike, how was your week? Did you get any free time? Or was it one of those weeks where time disappears and suddenly it's Friday and you don't know what happened?
Oh, it was one of those weeks. I felt like I woke up on Monday, blinked twice, and suddenly it was Thursday night. I didn't even know what day it was, but I did manage to get a little free time on Wednesday evening.
Nice. What did you do?
I went to a bookstore after work. There's a small bookstore near my apartment. It's quiet and warm and smells like old paper. I love that place. I didn't actually buy anything this time. I just walked around, looked at some books, sat in a chair in the corner, and listened to the soft music they play in the background. It sounds so simple, but it felt like a gift.
I love that image. A bookstore is a perfect place for gentle free time. When I have free time like that, I usually go to a little tea shop near my bus stop. It has this cozy lighting and comfy chairs that make you want to stay longer than you planned. Sometimes I bring a book, and sometimes I just sit there and look out the window. Watching people on the street is one of my favorite hobbies. It makes me wonder about their lives.
People watching is the best. I do that too, especially at cafes. I try to imagine where they're going and what they're thinking. Like there's always someone walking very fast with headphones, and I think, wow, this person has a mission. And then there's someone walking slowly as if they have all the time in the world.
Yes, and this actually brings us to something important for learners. Free time activities don't always need big actions. They can be slow, quiet, or simple. In English, you can say, I like to sit in a cafe, or I enjoy watching people on the street. Those are real activities. You're still living. You're still experiencing the world.
Exactly. And here's a funny thing. Last Saturday, I tried something new in my free time. I tried painting. Not painting a house, painting on actual paper with brushes and colors. Let me tell you, it was a disaster. I tried to paint a bowl of fruit, and somehow it looked like the fruit was screaming for help. My friend looked at it and tried to be polite, but his face said everything.
Oh no, that makes me laugh. But that's amazing. Trying something new in your free time is brave. A lot of people avoid new hobbies because they're scared of being bad at them. But honestly, being bad at something is part of the fun.
I agree. After that, I just accepted the chaos and started painting random shapes and colors. It was surprisingly relaxing. I had music playing in the background and the paint smelled nice, which made me remember elementary school art class. Suddenly, I felt 10 years old again. Free time can do that. It can bring back childhood feelings.
You make a good point. Free time is not only about hobbies. It's also about reconnecting with parts of yourself that you don't see during work or school. For me, that happens when I bake. I don't bake often, but when I do, my whole apartment smells like cinnamon and sugar, and it reminds me of my grandmother's house. She used to bake every Sunday morning. When I bake now, it feels like she's still here in the room with me.
That's beautiful. And I want beginners to notice something. When we talk about free time, we often add feelings. We say things like, it relaxes me, or it reminds me of something, or it makes me happy. Those are simple emotional sentences that bring your English to life.
Yes, and you don't need complex vocabulary to express emotion. You can say, I feel happy when I cook, or I feel calm when I listen to music. Even a sentence like, it makes me smile, is powerful because it shows who you are.
And that's the magic of talking about free time. You introduce yourself without saying, tell me about your personality. You just show it through your activities. And honestly, after all that, I think we underestimate how important free time is. It gives structure to the week. It gives the brain oxygen. And without it, we feel like machines instead of people.
Something that helps beginners talk about free time is learning how to add small connectors. These are short words that help you explain when you do something, why you do it, or with whom. And here's the good news. You already know many of them from your first week of learning English. You just need to start using them in longer sentences.
For example, you can add the word because. It helps you explain the reason. You can say, I play the guitar because music helps me relax, or I go swimming because it makes my body feel good. You don't need fancy words to talk about reasons. Because is enough.
Another simple connector is with. You can say, I cook with my sister, or I play football with my friends, or I watch movies with my father. When you add with, suddenly the picture becomes social and more interesting.
There's also after and before. They help you put your free time into your daily routine. For example, I read before sleeping, or I take a walk after dinner, or I play games after school. These little additions make your English sound complete instead of short and empty.
And then there's when. When helps you connect two things. For example, I listen to music when I clean my room, or I drink tea when I study, or I draw pictures when I feel bored. The rhythm is simple and friendly.
Let's put this into real conversation again. What's something you do in your free time that involves a reason or a person?
Easy. I like to cook with my sister because we talk a lot while we cook. The kitchen becomes this little world where we complain about work, tell stories about our day, and sometimes laugh so hard we forget what meal we were supposed to make.
I love that, and it shows how connectors add meaning. If you remove the connectors and you say, I like to cook, it's fine, but the listener learns nothing about you. When you add with my sister and because we talk a lot, suddenly it becomes human.
How about you? Give me an example with time.
All right, I usually watch documentaries after dinner. Eating relaxes me, so after dinner my brain is quiet and I can pay attention. Sometimes I watch animal documentaries and I get emotionally invested in penguins for reasons I cannot explain. Penguins are very dramatic.
They really are. They walk around like tired office workers trying not to fall. But listen to your sentence again. You said, I usually watch documentaries after dinner. It's simple, but it shows schedule, habit, and personality all at once.
Let's add another angle. Free time can also include exercise. I'm not a gym person, but I enjoy taking long walks on Sunday mornings because the city is quiet and the air feels fresh. I walk slowly, look at buildings, listen to my footsteps, and sometimes wave at strangers walking their dogs. It sounds poetic, but really, I'm just moving my body and enjoying the silence.
And that's something many beginners don't realize. You can talk about exercise without using complicated fitness vocabulary. You don't need words like cardio or resistance training. You can say, I walk with my dog, or I ride my bike with my brother, or I go running in the park before work. These are all real sentences that sound warm and personal.
Another detail students forget is that free time is not only what you do, but how you feel about it. Saying, I play guitar is information. Saying, I play guitar when I feel stressed because it helps me calm down is a story. And stories are easier to remember, easier to listen to, and easier to connect with. If beginners start adding those little connectors like with, because, after, before, and when, they'll be surprised how fast their English starts sounding more alive and less like they're reading keywords from a dictionary.
Let's move into a more natural conversation again. Imagine two friends sitting in a cafe on a weekend, catching up after a long week. There's music in the background, a little bit of street noise outside, and warm drinks in front of them.
I can already picture it. So, Anna, if you had a completely free Saturday with no responsibilities, no chores, no errands, nothing you need to fix or clean, nothing you need to fix or clean, nothing, what would you actually do with that time?
Oh, that's a beautiful question. Honestly, if Saturday was truly free, I think I would start slow. I would wake up late, open the window, feel the morning air, and make breakfast that takes more than 10 minutes. Maybe pancakes or something with fruit. After that, I would probably take a long walk in the park near my apartment. The trees in that park always make me feel peaceful, like time is moving a little slower there.
That sounds like a dream. Do you go alone or with someone?
Usually alone. I like walking alone because it gives me space to think and I don't have to rush. If someone walks with me, I feel like I need to match their speed. When I'm alone, my legs decide the pace and my brain decides the direction. Sometimes I end up sitting on a bench just watching people play with their dogs or watching children try to balance on their scooters. It makes me smile.
I love how vivid that sounds. And after the walk, then what?
After the walk, I would probably go to that tea shop I mentioned earlier. I'd order something warm, take out a book, and read until I felt sleepy. Then I'd go home and watch a movie. Maybe something slow and beautiful. That would be my perfect Saturday. What about you?
My perfect Saturday is different, but in a funny way, it has the same calm feeling. If I had a truly free Saturday, I would wake up early on purpose because I love the quiet of the morning. The city feels like it's still sleeping. I'd make coffee and drink it on the balcony while listening to birds or the faraway sound of a bus starting its route. Then I'd take my bike and ride around the neighborhood for an hour or two.
Do you ride fast or slow?
Slow, very slow. I'm not trying to win anything. I just like feeling the air and watching the buildings pass by. Sometimes I stop to take pictures of small things like a cat sitting on a window or a flower growing between the sidewalk cracks. After that, I'd go to a bakery and buy fresh bread, and that bread would become the star of my lunch.
You're making free time sound delicious. Bread should be part of everyone's hobby list.
I agree fully. After lunch, I might play the piano for a while. I'm not a professional, but I taught myself during the pandemic, and it became a quiet hobby. I don't play complicated pieces, I just play simple melodies that make me feel relaxed. And if my friend calls me in the afternoon and says, "Hey, do you want to go for a walk?" I'll say yes. I like spontaneous plans on weekends. They make me feel like the world is bigger than my apartment.
It's interesting how talking about free time reveals our personalities. People who love slow mornings usually enjoy peaceful hobbies. People who love noise often choose social activities. There's no right or wrong, but it's fun to listen.
Absolutely. And here's a useful thing for learners. When someone asks you about your free time, you can ask back. That keeps the conversation flowing. For example, after someone tells you their activity, you can say, "That sounds fun. How often do you do that?" Or, "Who do you usually do that with?" Or even simple reactions like, "Really? I didn't know that." Or, "Wait, for how long?" help the conversation feel alive instead of robotic.
Yes, because in real life, conversations are built from curiosity, not from perfect grammar. If you show interest, even with simple English, people will talk to you longer.
And honestly, when I look back, many of my closest friendships started with conversations about small things like music, weekend plans, or favorite ways to relax. Big topics came later. Free time was the doorway.
Let's give our listeners a chance to practice in a simple way. If you're listening, try to answer in your head, or say it out loud if you can. Imagine someone asks you, "What do you do in your free time?" And think about your real life. Don't invent something just to sound interesting. Your truth is enough.
Here are a few friendly patterns you can use to build your answer. In my free time, I like to, I enjoy. On weekends, I choose one of those and finish the sentence with something honest.
Now let's add a small detail. If you said, "I like to cook," add "with my family," or "on Sundays," or "because it helps me relax." These small details make the answer feel complete.
I'll give one example so listeners can hear the rhythm. On weekends, I play football with my cousins because it's fun and it brings us together. Beginner level, but real and full. If you're practicing at home, answer these questions slowly. What do you do? When do you do it? Who do you do it with? Why do you enjoy it? Even if your answer is only 2 sentences, that's already conversation-level English.
Before we wrap up today's episode, I want to remind our listeners that free time isn't just about activities. It's also about identity. When you talk about what you do when you're not working or studying, you're showing people what makes you feel alive. You're showing what brings you joy, comfort, curiosity, or peace. And you can express all of that with simple beginner English.
And honestly, when I look back, many of my closest friendships started with conversations about small things like music, weekend plans, or favorite ways to relax. Big topics came later. Free time was the doorway.
Let's give our listeners a chance to practice in a simple way. If you're listening, try to answer in your head, or say it out loud if you can. Imagine someone asks you, "What do you do in your free time?" And think about your real life. Don't invent something just to sound interesting. Your truth is enough.
Here are a few friendly patterns you can use to build your answer. In my free time, I like to, I enjoy. On weekends, I choose one of those and finish the sentence with something honest.
Now let's add a small detail. If you said, I like to cook, add with my family or on Sundays or because it helps me relax. These small details make the answer feel complete.
I'll give one example so listeners can hear the rhythm. On weekends, I play football with my cousins because it's fun and it brings us together. Beginner level, but real and full. If you're practicing at home, answer these questions slowly. What do you do? When do you do it? Who do you do it with? Why do you enjoy it? Even if your answer is only 2 sentences, that's already conversation-level English.
Before we wrap up today's episode, I want to remind our listeners that free time isn't just about activities. It's also about identity. When you talk about what you do when you're not working or studying, you're showing people what makes you feel alive. You're showing what brings you joy, comfort, curiosity, or peace. And you can express all of that with simple beginner English.
And don't pressure yourself to have fancy hobbies. If your free time is just listening to music on the bus, that's fine. If it's playing games with your brother, that's fine. If it's drinking coffee alone because it gives your brain a small vacation, that's also fine. The value is not in the activity, but in the feeling it gives you.
And the more you talk about it in English, the easier it becomes. You don't need perfect grammar to connect with someone. You just need a few patterns, a little detail, and a bit of emotion. The rest grows with time.
If you enjoyed today's conversation, make sure you subscribe, leave a comment, and share this episode with someone who wants to speak English in a calm and natural way. We appreciate you for practicing with us today, and we hope you get some real free time this week to do something that makes you feel like yourself. Take care, everyone, and we'll see you in the next episode.